Greetings brothers, today once and for all we're going to settle a debate on what are your best troop choices in 9th edition. We're going to go back to basics including quite a bit of Math Hammer, so stick around. Okay, we're getting straight into it today. Troop damage comparison. So we've got about 4 sections to go in this video. We're going to have a quick look at the War Scrolls. We're going to look at Math Hammer for survivability, range damage, melee damage. I'm going to draw some conclusions, and then I'm going to do some bonus Math Hammer at the end. So when I'm playing games of 40k, I'm always trying to do maths in my head. I do maths when I'm attacking, defending, when I'm going to play stratagems, and knowing the math and knowing what these units can do is really going to try and help you out. So let's get straight into this video where we talk about the 3 troop choices I want to focus on today. They are Intercessors, Incursors, and Assault Intercessors. I've done a little bit of color coding, but I guess the main thing to say between all these profiles is basically these troops are identical. Intercessors for 100 points, Incursors for 105, Assault Intercessors for 95. The one thing to say about Assault Intercessors, I suppose, is they are the cheapest way to get Primaris models on the board at 95 points. Now, your Intercessors, we see a lot of people running with auto bolt rifles, but they can also run regulars and stalkers, and don't worry, we're going to dive into all the maths and we're going to know exactly which is best. Our Incursors have no weapon options, but the great thing with Incursors is they do a little bit of both shooting and close combat because they have those paired combat blades giving them -1 AP. And then our Assault Intercessors, as you know, they are a close combat unit. The cool thing with Assault Intercessors is there is a stratagem that lets them fight twice, but in practice it's pretty difficult to use. They're not the most damaging unit if you're only going to run them in a 5-man, so I'm not sure 2 CP is actually worth it for 5, but these are our 3 troop choices that I want to focus on. You can also take Infiltrators, which again share the exact same profile. I'd say Infiltrators are a much more defensive pick, and as a Blood Angels player, you're usually going to want to be more offensive. I have done previous videos on Infiltrators, so if you want to search the channel and find out why I think they are a good troop choice, you can. But I really think we're looking for offensive units, and the 3 troop choices here are kind of our most offensive troop choices, and we'll cover heavy Intercessors as well in a little bit. So let's talk about survivability, and because the profiles for all of them are identical, then we can just work from here. So on our basic profile, toughness 4, 3+ save, 2 wounds per model. It's going to take 8 bolt rifle shots to kill a model, and I've coloured this as well, so if you're not familiar with how I do the maths, you can see. So the orange 8 means with bolt rifles, for example, you'd wound on a 4+. So if you got hit 8 times, force to wound would be 50% chance to wound. So basically you would force the enemy to take 4 saves. You'd save on a 4+ because you have a 3+ armor save. So you would fail 2 because it's -1 AP. So hence that's 1 dead marine. So it basically means if the enemy is shooting you with bolt rifles, they need 8 successful hits to kill your model. So that's what this whole chart is based on. So basic profile, then you're going to survive 8 bolt rifles, 3 heavy bolters, 1.2 multi-mata shots, and 2.25 of those heavy squig launchers. I realise heavy squig launchers just took a huge nerf this week, as in they cannot be running. You can't fight against 9 of them, but they're still a very good weapon. They're still very anti-marine killy, so let's leave that on there for now. Now, if you paid the 1 CP to transhuman any of these squads, it makes no difference against the bolt rifles because they're already strength 4. It increases the number of shots that you'll need to get killed by a heavy bolter, and you can see that I've put in 1 in green that basically says it will take 1 more shot to kill a marine if you use the heavy bolter if they are transhumaned. Multi-melta, it'll take 0.8 more shots, and heavy squig launchers, it'll take 0.75 more shots. Now the final thing to say is the Phobos units, and in this case Incursors, they can smokescreen, and if they use smokescreen, then against bolt rifles, they're basically going to need to take an extra 4 shots against you if they're a ballistic skill 3. I have to now include the ballistic skill because my previous calculation just didn't include getting hit. For heavy bolters, it's going to take 1.5 extra shots if they're ballistic skill 3. Multi-melta is going to take 0.6 extra shots. And those heavy squig launchers, for example, are going to move from ballistic skill 4 to ballistic skill 5. I know that they're normally 5 with +1 to hit, but I guess this will cancel out their +1 to hit the smokescreen, meaning it's 2.5 extra shots. So if you think of transhuman, and we know transhuman is a great stratagem, playing transhuman against those strength 5 squig launchers is actually only going to give you 0.75 extra hits. Whereas playing smokescreen is actually going to require them to make 2.5 extra shots. So the -1 from Smokescreen is going to be just as effective as Transhuman in terms of it's modifying a dice roll by 1, and in some cases this might even be more effective because it's the hit roll and not the wound roll, and we know that hits come first, so every dropped hit is essentially also a dropped wound. So what's interesting to me is it is 2 CP to make them survivable if you wanted to use both Smokescreen and Transhuman, but this could really mess with an opponent's plan. You know, if they decide to shoot a whole unit of something at a squad of Incursors that they're convinced they're going to kill, and you spend the Smokescreen and the Transhuman modifying both dice rolls by 1, that's quite a lot of more survivability here. You know, you're over doubling the number of shots that they would need to kill that unit with, and I kind of rate Smokescreen really highly on Incursors because sometimes, and I've done this myself in games, sometimes the enemy's going to pick 2 of your troop units. You know, you could have 2 troop units on 2 different objectives. If these are both Incursors, then you're free to play Transhuman on one and play Smokescreen on the other. Basically, like I've just said, Smokescreen is just as effective as Transhuman, especially against certain ballistic skills. You can really use this to keep these Incursors alive. So this is one of the main reasons that I think Incursors are a really good choice. Now, let's move on to range damage next. And what I've done here is I've taken a list of like 8 different models: Chaos Cultists, Space Marines, a character, sort of like heavy infantry with toughness 5, I guess you could think of someone in Gravis armor, heavy infantry, like what I mean by the heavy infantry in this case is like Death Guard Terminators. I've put some monsters, dreadnoughts, and armors, right? And then I've just worked out the amount of damage every single gun will do against these. I've not included range, so you'd need to be in range, obviously. And if the gun can rapid fire, in the case of like the bolt rifles or the bolt carbines, then I've included the rapid fire shots. And this is what you get. So a lot of people have run auto bolt rifles, and some people really think that auto bolt rifles have strength. And I guess a good number of these situations, the green highlight means that it is the best choice. The orange highlight means it was the second best choice. So you can see auto bolt rifles perform very well across the board. The standard bolt rifles perform not badly at all. Stalkers actually did surprisingly decently when you actually work out the maths. And then the bolt carbines from your Incursors sort of came in second place with a couple of options. So the Incursors are kind of middle of the board. The Intercessors are best, as we would expect. So I think a lot of people think auto bolt rifles are by far the best, and it turns out that in most situations, any of the 3 bolt rifle choices for the Intercessors are actually pretty decent. And I think what's important to say is the Incursors aren't bad here. They're definitely not as good, but they aren't bad. One final thing to say is that Incursors also have the multi-spectrum array, which means that any negative modifiers against ballistic skill never take effect against their guns. So in the situation like maybe you were fighting up a Calixis Assassin, where you can normally only hit it on a 6+, the Incursors can happily just continue to hit it on their normal 3-up ballistic skill. So, no surprises here, really, but if we then move into melee damage, and as you would expect, same 8 enemy types, the Assault Intercessors are going to do by far the most damage. Obviously, they have their chainswords giving them additional attack and -1 AP. However, against like tougher targets, and I guess if we use the heavy infantry, for example, that would be like a Blightlord Terminator. We actually end up with like, we don't even kill a single Blightlord Terminator with a whole squad of Assault Intercessors. So their damage output is okay, again, against weaker targets, but overall not amazing. And then right behind them, I guess, are the Incursors. So the Incursors, they were sort of in second place in shooting. They are also second place in melee combat. There isn't a huge difference here. Most times it's like less than a point of damage, except maybe the Chaos Cultists are the anomaly. So basically what you're saying is your Incursors are 10 points more. They're going to do 1 less damage than your Assault Intercessors in melee. They're probably going to be able to make up from that in shooting. They have access to Transhuman and Guerrilla Tactics, and overall I've kind of fallen in love with Incursors as of late. I think that it's very good in Blood Angel's army list to include a couple of squads of Incursors, and I think the numbers here are really sort of backing it up. This column in the middle is the total damage that your Intercessors would do in combat, and to be honest, it's really not that bad. Again, it's like only 1 point less than the Incursors, so you could kind of argue that they would make up that in the shooting. So there's almost no difference between the 3 troop choices in terms of raw damage output. So then it really comes back to survivability and utility. And for me, the survivability of being able to do both the smokescreen and the transhuman on different models is going to be pretty important. And then guerrilla tactics, as you know, I tend to always try and retrieve Octaria's data. I think it's a very easy secondary to score points on. And with guerrilla tactics, and also guerrilla tactics to just get you around the map as well, the Intercessors are arguably the most mobile unit across the board. So I've been saying now for a while that I think Intercessors and Phobos units are the best in terms of utility. Well, I guess here now are the numbers. And the numbers tell me that they are they're just as good as either of the two other options that you have there. And then they exceed way ahead in the utility, and what you do is you only pay maybe like 5 points for that. Yes, you're limited in the weapon options, but I tend to don't like I put a sergeant or put a chainsword on my intercessor sergeant, and maybe like on the assault intercessor sergeant, maybe at the end of the day I have like 5 points left over in my list and I could put a power sword or something on him. But if I have 5 points left over in my list, I would tend to put an infernal pistol somewhere else that I feel like I get more value out of. So I think the fact that the intercessors have no additional weapon options is not a deal breaker for me. I still think they are a great choice. So, like I said, I've talked for months about this, and now I think the maths really back this up. One other thing that I hadn't mentioned up until this point are concealed positions. So your Intercessors are also able to basically forward deploy, put on early pressure, back up early charges, disrupt the opponent's tactics, combined with the ability to use guerrilla tactics late in the game to help score and deny your opponent points. I think they are 100% the best choice. If this video doesn't persuade you to take or buy Intercessors, then you know what, we'll probably do a giveaway on this channel where we give away Intercessors, and I'll start giving them away and making sure that all you guys just make sure you can start including Intercessors and play them like I do and get points out of them every game. So I tend to always run my troops in 5, and I think that 2 squads of Intercessors are a great backbone and a choice for a Blood Angels army. They're just going to set you up to really be able to get those early points, and then also put on a bit of area pressure, and overall, I mean, they're just so valuable. Like I said, you want to focus on scoring primaries and secondaries in every game in 9th edition. This is going to be how you are going to win games, and these guys, for me, tend to always deliver. Unless there's a brand new troop choice that comes out that's amazing, then I think it will be Intercessors for the foreseeable future. So when we talk about brand new troop choices, then I thought there is one brand new troop choice, and that is the Heavy Intercessors. And I did buy the Heavy Intercessors, and I have actually never run them myself. They are going to be basically 35 more points than your Intercessors, and like 40 points more if you were going over your Intercessors. But they do get +1 wound, they do get +1 toughness, and also +1 strength on their ranged rifles. So I thought we would just dive into them for that bonus math hammer section and see if they compare or compete with the Intercessors. So here is the profile and the numbers for the Heavy Intercessors, and while they are strength 5 on both their auto bolt rifles, which I guess are called Helmstorm bolt rifles, their regular bolt rifles, and their Executioner bolt rifles, their damage output is very small over the regular Intercessors. At best, it's sort of 1 point of damage per turn. So if you think about paying 40 points more for the squad, and you're only doing 1 point of damage more per turn, we're going to have to get something brilliant in terms of survivability for that to feel like it's worth it, because 40 points is quite a lot of points to only average 1 damage per turn. I mean, you could put like a weapon, you know, you can put a multi-melta on a vehicle for like 25 points, right? And it's going to average a lot more than 1 damage per turn. So let's have a look. I guess the Heavy Intercessors have a little bit more range, but in the new board size, I don't often find my units out with range unless I'm purposefully trying to outrange my enemy, right? You know, like in some games, you want to stay out of range of like enemy las cannons or something, so you could be doing that on purpose. But if you want to be in range, then usually you can find a way to make every gun work, and it's only maybe in turn 1 that you're not in range. So the extra range here I think is minor. So let's talk about survivability. And obviously these are toughness 5, and they do have 3 wounds. So it does make a considerable difference in terms of surviving versus an array of weapons. You know, like the bolt rifles were going to kill a regular marine with 8 shots. Now they're going to need 18 shots. A heavy bolter was going to be 3. Now it's 8. There's very little difference in the multi-melta, but against those heavy squig launchers, then the numbers go up quite a bit. Transhuman, though, becomes much less valuable with the heavy intercessors because, you know, in this example where I've got 2 strength 5 weapons, then transhuman has no effect, so I've just scored that out. And we also do have unyielding in the face of the foe, which lets you get +1 to your save against 1 damage weapons. I don't know if I really rate this. If you're getting shot by 1 damage weapons, they're usually not that strong, but I guess you could get a 2-up save, so you could become a bit more survivable against the likes of bolt rifles or other -1 AP weapons. So if the shooting is a bit poor, and their survivability is only a small bit better, and I guess it is maybe like a little bit cheaper in terms of using CP, but the one thing that it brings me back to is, like, we always talk about the strength of the Blood Angels is their ability to move quickly around the map, and I think this is one of the reasons that, like, I just love Phobos, is because guerrilla tactics takes a troop choice, and normally your troops are kind of slow, and just removes that element from it where you can redeploy them from strategic reserve in the following turn for 1 CP. So if you really, you know, if you have a troop choice in a quadrant that gets killed and you really need another troop choice to get over there to perform retrieve Octarius data, then you can do that with 1 CP, whereas you can't do it with any of the other non-Phobos choices. And the issue that I see with the heavy intercessors is they're Gravis, so they're only going to move 5, so they're going to be even slower. And I mean, Gravis models can work for Blood Angels. You know, you can take aggressors or something and send them center board, and you can do work with them. But this is a troop choice that doesn't do a lot of damage with the shooting. Their close combat is going to be worse than any of the choices we looked at before, because again, they can't take any close combat weapons. So I think my conclusion overall here is the Phobos troops are still best. The infiltrators, if you want to be defensive, but if you want to put pressure on, if you want to be moving around the map, if you want to be reasonably good in shooting and close combat, then Incursors are 100% the best troop choice for Blood Angels in 9th edition, and I guess prove me wrong or tell me why I am wrong in the comments section. So I want to quickly tell you that there's a deal on right now before the end of November where you can get 3 audiobooks over on audible.com for 99 pence on a free trial. I will put a link in the video description and also on screen now. So if you want to do that, every time someone signs up to the free trial that supports the channel a little bit, that would be super appreciated. And also at the same time, you can get some great books on there. I just finished Solar War, but Dante is on there, Darkness in the Blood, Devastation of Baal, and a bunch of other 40k topics. So if that's something you're interested in, please click the link. It would mean so much and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please consider either subscribing to the channel or hitting the like button. Your support really means a lot. I hope to catch you in the next video, and I will also leave a link to one of my playlists on screen now, so if you'd like to watch some Blood Angels content, you can dive right in. Until next time, brothers, by the blood are we made strong. Peace.